Nowadays, countries and cultures have never been that connected. Science, philosophy, history, art, technologies, everything or so can be exchanged and passed down, allowing knowledge to expand everywhere in the world. Yet, this wasn't always the case, and through the human history, some big cities initiated the crazy dream of becoming the true radiant starting point of culture and science. Let's discover some places that marked our civilization. Before to be the theater of deep troubles still existing in Iraq, Baghdad was the heart of an economical and cultural presence in the Arabic world. It was often mistaken for Babylon. Founded around the 8th century, its construction required nearly 100,000 workers for 4 years. Originally, the city formed a circle protected by two lines of walls and a huge ditch 20 meters large. Even so, the rather fast development of the city soon changed its original shape. Chose as capital of the Abbasid Empire in 750, the empire which expanded on the Middle East, Baghdad is considered with Xi'an in China as one of the first cities in human history to get over 1 million inhabitants. The city is the administrative and fiscal center of the empire, making it the center of the taxes and the imperial post. Concerning religion, the caliph who lived in the heart of the city was the supreme authority when there was any issues with the Islamic laws. Up to the 10th century, at least the majority of the Muslim empire was led in Baghdad. The city was placed between the Tigris River and links to the Euphrates by channels that permit to it to open important river roads to India, China, Africa, and Mediterranean, as well as land roads to Europe, Bulgaria, or also Constantinople. A commercial road was created with Scandinavia to trade skin and fur. On a commercial plan, the capital was the center of exchanges. They developed a strong industry around leather, paper, crystals, but also silks and cotton. All this wealth enabled the city to further its developments. At the same time, Baghdad became one of the most important places in terms of science and culture. Scientists came from all over the world to study in Baghdad and learn more about science and culture. In the year 832 was created the first House of Wisdom, huge libraries gathering knowledge and allowing wise men to translate works. This one was dedicated to Persian, Greek, and Armenian works. It is the preservation of knowledge already produced and the meeting of many scientists from all over the world. Philosophers, mathematicians, historians gathered to debate, exchange, and make science progress in the empire. Many schools were created, training judges and religion masters. Even when the power was weakened, which happened after the 10th century, the capital was prospering economically and culturally. Yet it didn't prevent some conflict from breaking out in the beginning of the 11th century. Internal confronting inside the Muslim world between Shiites and the Sunnis, but also between the rich and the poor, without forgetting the famous series of floods and fires devastated part of the city. But in the 13th century, the Mongols, who were invading the country, entered the city and began slaughtering everyone and destroying everything. More than 100,000 people slaughtered, and the famous House of the Wisdom was emptied and the works thrown into the Tigris River, leading to the loss of many artistic and philosophic and scientific works. Alexander the Great was without doubt one of the greatest conquerors in this world. In 343 BC, he was only 13. Aristotle was designated to be his professor. The philosopher taught the young man during 3 years and had a huge influence on his life and his guidelines. He saw in him a future conqueror, able to unify Greece and to make their culture shine all over the Mediterranean. Alexander was an extremely talented student, but also a mature young man who ruled his father's kingdom when he was absent. When he was only 16, in 336 BC, he was elected king of Macedonia and began his famous conquests. During these conquests, he founded numerous cities, a bit more than 70, and the majority of them, 32, were named Alexandria. Today, we mostly know the biggest one, which had a huge cultural and scientific influence. In 332 BC, 24 years old Alexander decided to create a huge city in Egypt. The ancients called it Alexandria near Egypt because it was not next to the Nile River, neither on the delta itself, but a bit more in the west, on a band of land between the Mediterranean Sea and a lagoon. The region where it was erected was also called the Shepherd's Land, and was composed of many swamps with bad reputation and considered hostile and often designated as bandits. If the location of the city was revealed to Alexander in a dream, the geographical and strategic interests of the place were also important. The legend says that the king drew himself the city plan, but busy preparing the conquest of the Persian Empire, handed down the building. Following Aristotle's teaching, the city had a totem plan with large streets, sometimes up to 30 meters, in the direction of the wind to cool the inhabitants. Later on, the city was linked to Pharaoh's Island, where the famous Alexandria Lighthouse, one of the seven wonders of the world, was erected. Even so, it was only after Alexander's death in 323 BC that the city significantly developed. After his death, the kingdom was split into several parts, and Ptolemy, one of his generals, inherited Egypt. He made the city capital of Egypt one of the biggest Mediterranean cities, with around 50,000 inhabitants from everywhere: Egyptian, Syrian, Jews, and a Greek Macedonian minority. Progressively, the city became an important place for culture and science. A museum was built, a true research center where from all around the world were invited and paid for their research and to make science progress. Housing, a canteen, a zoological and a botanical park were at their disposal. Many schools were built, mainly for math and philosophy. The city was culturally prospering, allowing progress in astronomy, medicine. Archimedes and Euclid even lived there. One of the greatest places in Egypt at that time was the famous Alexandria Library. Created by Ptolemy I, it was enriched and developed by his successors. The library had the ambition of gathering all books from all peoples on earth. To do so, the directors asked the sovereigns of all countries to send as many books as possible to put on their shelves. An army of 70 intellectuals traveled to gather books and translate them into Greek. It said that a group of 6 representatives of Jewish tribes locked themselves on Pharaoh's Island to translate the Bible in only 72 days. The library decided not to stop there and began searching for private collection, offering money for books, buying for example Aristotle's personal library. One of the common methods were created to collect these books, like this port tax, which consisted in giving the works on board to the library for it to copy them. At its apogee, the library would have contained almost 700,000 books. These works were obviously kept for savants and intellectuals, but in the beginning of the 2nd century BC, an annex opened to the public with 42,800 scrolls. From this period, it got more complicated for the library, and around 145 BC, Ptolemy VIII expelled savants from the city who left with works. During the same century, the second biggest library of the antique world was developed in Turkey. It was named the Library of Pergamon, with more than 200,000 works. It was estimated that the competition between the two libraries was harsh. Pergamon even forged documents to complete its collection. This new library was fundamentally different from the Alexandria one, because of Pergamon intellectuals were interested in all ancient text interpretation, while in Alexandria they studied vocabulary and intersected information, masking facts when they were too obscure to be credible. The library took a breath of fresh air in 86 BC when Athens intellectuals arrived, fleeing their city looted by Romans. After this event, historical traces are so deep. If some historians consider that the library burnt in the Great Fire of 45 BC during Caesar's campaign in Egypt, others claim that the fire destroyed only a small part of the building. Something is sure: Alexandria Library made its mark and was the lighthouse enlightening many countries. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to see more videos. See you next time.